What is going on, guys and girls? I hope you're all doing well today. We're back here with Chapter Day Bible Study, and today we're going to be looking at Genesis 8. This is about the flood subsiding, so let's get right into the reading. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. And God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water subsided. Also the fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky was restrained. And the water receded steadily from the earth. And at the end of 150 days the water decreased. In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat. The water decreased steadily until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. Then it came about at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. And he sent out a raven, and it flew here and there until the water was dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove from him, to see if the water was abated from the face of the land. But the dove found no resting place for the sole of her foot. So she returned to him into the ark, for the water was on the surface of all the earth. Then he put out his hand and took her, and brought her into the ark to himself. So he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent out the dove from the ark. The dove came to him toward evening, and behold, in her beak was a freshly picked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the water was abated from the earth. Then he waited yet another 7 days, and sent out the dove, but she did not return to him again. Now it came about in the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st of the month, the water was dried up from the earth. Then Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the surface of the ground was dried up. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God spoke to Noah, saying, Go out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may breed abundantly on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out by their families from the ark. One second, I lost my place. I'll just start at 19 again. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth, went out by their families from the ark. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. The Lord smelled the soothing aroma. And the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of men, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. And I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. All right, everybody, I hope you all enjoyed the reading of Genesis 8. Now let's look at some points of emphasis. So the first point, the water decreased for 3 months steadily. So it tells us that from the 7th to the 10th month, the water decreased steadily. And it wasn't like 40 days, 40 nights, and then the water just subsided immediately. Noah was actually in the ark for a pretty long time, over a year. So there was a lot of aftermath because of the rain. So let's look at the next point. Noah sent out a raven, but the bird never returned. So the raven never returned. It doesn't really explain much after this, and I'm not really sure why he sent out a raven and then a dove, but the raven is a strong flyer. He could have sat on top of the ark. He could have flown around, even possibly. I don't think there was a lot of raging currents and so forth through the water. There could have been pretty stagnant water pools that he could have swam around in to rest. And, the water receded from the mountaintops before all the water was gone, clearly. So he could have sat on a mountaintop. It doesn't really explain why he never returned. It's just sort of interesting fact that he sent out a raven and it never returned, and then he sent out the dove three times actually, and it returned twice. So that leads us into our next point. Noah sends the dove out from the ark three times. So the first time, nothing really happens. The dove just kind of flies away and comes back, and Noah knows that the dove didn't have any place to rest. And then he sends him out again 7 days later, and comes back with an olive branch. And so now Noah knows the water's receding, or has receded pretty far. And then he sends him out a third time, and the dove never comes back. So he knows that the water is pretty much fully receded. So then the next point, God gives the command to exit the ark with all the animals. So then God tells Noah, you can come out of the ark now, bring all the animals, let the animals be fruitful and multiply, as well as Shem, Ham, and Japheth and their wives. Noah and his wife never actually had more children, because at that point they were getting older, I guess. Even though 600 at that time wasn't that old, as Noah went on to live till 950. So, I think that it was probably possible for them to reproduce. I don't know. It's a tough thing to call, but for whatever reason they did not. Whether it was just impossible, or they felt that it wasn't a good idea for them, or whatever it was, they didn't do it. So it's just an interesting point. And then the final point, Noah builds an altar, and the Lord promises to never wipe out every creeping thing again. So this is interesting. Noah built an altar and had a sacrifice to God, and then God, promises never to wipe out the earth again. He says, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall never cease. So obviously that will cease when he comes back when he comes back to the earth, and takes us away. But until that point, we know that summer and winter, day and night, will never cease. So that's just an interesting point. And let's move on to life application. So I said, trust God always. So God has never lied in the Bible. Prophecies have all come true. So we can trust God. He has a perfect record. We can trust God with all our heart, soul, and mind, as we are called to do. He brought 8 people through a flood in a boat with every single type of animal on it. So I think we can trust God to get us through the tough times, get us through the hard times. We can trust God's promise that he will never destroy the earth again until his return. And we can put our full trust in that. Whenever we see that rainbow, we can think about that promise and thank God for that promise, so we don't have to live in fear, like, is there going to be a flood tomorrow? You know what I mean? So it's truly astounding, and we should be very thankful to the Lord for all that he's given us. Sometimes I like to think as I'm going to sleep, I usually pray right before I'm going to sleep, and I just think about all the blessings that you have that seem minute or unimportant, or you take for granted. But I pray for simple things. I thank God for blessings like my pillowcase, my bed, my blanket, my parents. I mean, maybe you don't take for granted your parents. That's a little bit of a bigger thing. The book that I've been reading that's been giving me entertainment, or whatever it is. I thank God for minute things that people often take for granted, and I would encourage you to do that as well, because think about your life without them. Your bed might seem so simple, but think about if you didn't have a bed. It would be a little bit more uncomfortable. You might wake up with a sore back. We just have all these blessings that we take for granted and don't really think about, and even sometimes don't really regard as enough. Maybe some of you are like, I wish I had a bigger bed, or I wish I had a more comfortable mattress. But just be content with what you have and thank God for what you have, because he will always supply you with your needs, and you will never He's not going to take away your bed or whatever. And, we don't need a bed. We could sleep on the floor. God gives us what we need. That might be the minimal thing. You could be homeless and he would just supply you with just enough food and water to get through the day. Or you could have a giant mansion and, 10 computers and 15 cars or whatever. But, he'll supply you with what you need, whether it be the maximum or the minimum. And he says, to whom much is given, much will be required. So if you have 15 cars and 10 houses and 18 boats, then a lot's going to be required of you to use those resources wisely. And I wouldn't say that buying 18 boats would be wisely, but that's not the point. The point is that God gives us all that we need, and we need to thank him for that, and we can always trust God. So I thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all in my next video, and I'll be bringing to you Genesis 9.